Hello everyone, welcome to the part 1 of this series Learning Windows PowerShell in my channel Telugulo Telusko. In this video we are going to talk about some of the fundamental aspects of Windows PowerShell. So we are going to learn what PowerShell is all about, and then we'll also see what are the various different versions that are available in Windows PowerShell and which operating system shipped with which version of PowerShell, and also some of the requirements that we need to ensure we can upgrade to the latest version, which is 5.1. So let's go ahead and start our journey within PowerShell. So by understanding the basics first. So a Windows PowerShell is a command line and a scripting language, which means it has both interactive command line where you can just type a command and get the output as you need, and also at the same time you have a complete scripting language inbuilt within the PowerShell which you can leverage to automate some of the tasks. And as I said before, it is a complete programming language like any other programming language like Ruby, Python, Perl, and many other programming languages are there right there. But PowerShell is also one such programming languages, and it is actually built on .NET framework. So if you are familiar with the Windows environment, Windows heavily depends on .NET framework, and PowerShell has no exception. So PowerShell also relies on the .NET classes under the hood. So whatever the functionality or whatever the execution that happens heavily relies on .NET framework, and it is very flexible and adaptable. So Microsoft has done a very decent job in terms of uh, documenting a lot of things, make it easily adaptable for people coming from other programming languages. There is a lot of inbuilt help within PowerShell, and they followed a certain set of naming convention for every command that they have produced, so it can be easily predictable, and also it is easily adaptable for people who are coming from a different programming background, or a person doesn't even have a programming background. So with that said, we are going to take a look at various different versions of PowerShell that actually shipped with different operating systems. So the version 1 of PowerShell actually shipped with Server 2008. There are somewhere close to 130 commands in version 1. So it is not that flexible or not that powerful at that point. But the version 2, which shipped with Windows 7 and 2008 R2, has close to 2000 commands, and there are a couple of new features introduced like PowerShell remoting, and version 3 and version 4 has drastically improved the way the console looks. They redesigned the complete ISE, and a couple of new features like DSC, right, and then desired state configuration, and some new features again in version 4, and then support for workflows, PowerShell workflows and all. And then version 5 is where we are right now. Version 5.1 actually shipped with Windows 10 anniversary update and with Windows Server 2016. So these are the list of versions that are available from version 1 to version 5.1 where we are right now, and these are the operating systems with which PowerShell shipped with these versions. And again, if we have a particular Windows Server 2008 R2 or Windows 7 client machine on your network, it doesn't mean that you stick with Windows PowerShell version 2. You always have an option to upgrade to the latest version, which is 5.1. So we are going to see what are the requirements for such scenarios. So you can see that Windows Server 2019 shipped with version 5.1, which means it is a default, installed by default. Again, the same case with PowerShell 5.1 with Windows Server 2016. It is installed by default, so there is nothing you can do right there. But 2012 R2 shipped with version 4, and 2012 shipped with version 4. So if you want to upgrade to version 5.1, you need to install something called as Windows Management Framework 5.1. It is called WMF in short. You can just always search for WMF in Bing or Google. You will get the links to download and install the Windows Management Framework 5.1. And then 2008 Service Pack 2008 R2 Service Pack 1 came with version 3 of Windows PowerShell. So you can always go back and install the version 5.1 of WMF again to get to the latest version, which is version 5.1. And then Windows on the client side, Windows version 10 with 1067 and upwards has been installed by default with PowerShell version 5.1, and 1507 came with version 4 of PowerShell. You can always go back to WMF 5.1 and install the latest version there. And Windows 8 and Windows 7, the same requirements, you need to install WMF 5.1. It's pretty straightforward. So if you look at this particular client systems, probably you may observe that Windows Vista is missing. Yes, Windows Vista never shipped with any version of PowerShell, so that's something you need to keep in mind. So finally, there are we looked at the versions and requirements to upgrade to the latest version. Now we are going to talk about the different consoles that we have in PowerShell. So in PowerShell there are two different consoles. First one is an interactive console. An interactive console, what it means is it looks like your traditional command prompt where you can just type in your command and the output will be displayed on the console right away. So it is very good for one-to-one interaction in terms of getting an instantaneous output on your console. So it is very easy for you to run a command and get the output and see whether whatever the information you are looking for exists there or not. And the other console that we have is an integrated scripting environment. So the integrated scripting environment gives you the ability to write code in this particular area. This is called a scripting pane. And after you completed writing your code in this scripting pane, you can just execute that in this console pane. This is again an interactive console which is embedded into ISE, So you can just run the code right there in the ISE using the interactive console which is embedded, and then see if it is executing or not. Previously, when you're writing VB script or W script, any other scriptings in Windows, we used to use some text editors like Notepad or something like that, and then we need to write our complete code and then come to the console and then check whether it is working or not, and then if not, we need to go back to the text editor once again and fix it. So that's not the case with Windows PowerShell ISE anymore. Windows PowerShell ISE gives you the flexibility to write the code in the scripting pane, and you can test it on the interactive console. And at the same time, PowerShell ISE offers a lot many features like IntelliSense, which means tab completion of the commands automatically, and it's going to provide you a list of information which is useful for you to get your code completed. So we are going to take a look at the PowerShell ISE and the interactive console very shortly. So with that said, let's go into my lab environment and see how Windows PowerShell ISE actually looks. So I'm working on a 2012 R2. So if you are following, you should know that I am actually on version 4 of Windows PowerShell. So if you want to type PowerShell in the charms right there, so Microsoft operating systems are going to give you the indexed search results. So you can just ignore this one because I have an Active Directory installed on this machine. So it is showing the Active Directory PowerShell modules for Windows PowerShell, which is not relevant to our case at this point. But if you take a look, there are 4 different versions that are available, which are Windows PowerShell, Windows PowerShell ISE, Windows PowerShell x86, and then ISE x86. So what it means is, if you are running on a 64-bit operating system, you will have 4 PowerShell consoles. These two things which are saying x86 are there for backward compatibility. So these are the 32-bit versions of Windows PowerShell. And the other 2 Windows PowerShell right here, which doesn't say anything, just says Windows PowerShell, are the 64-bit versions. So if in case at any given point of time, if you want to use the 32-bit version of Windows PowerShell ISE, you can use this x86 version. So there are very few modules which are dependent on 32-bit, very late modules which are introduced with version 1. So that's not the case anymore. So we move to our new concepts in terms of extending the PowerShell shell. So the snap-ins are not a very big deal with 32-bit, but they are there for backward compatibility, just to keep you updated. And then, so if I going to launch any one of the PowerShell console right here, so always remember to run PowerShell as an administrator, because there is a big gotcha here, which is though you are logged in as an administrator into your computer, if you are not running PowerShell as an administrator, you will be limited to certain set of capabilities. You'll not be able to perform some set of administrative tasks using PowerShell, because you have not launched PowerShell as an administrator. So if you can see this particular console right here, it is very much similar to what our old command prompt looks like. You just type a command and then the execution happens and the output displays on the console. So don't worry about these commands that I'm typing right now. We are going to talk about these commands in detail in the next. Get service is one of the commandlet which will get me all the services on my computer. Get process is one more command which will get all the processes that are running on my machine. So you can see that I'm typing a command, I'm getting an output instantaneously on my console, which is why we call this as an interactive console. You interact with this console whenever you need, and you give a command and you get the output back. But at the same time, if I'm going to launch PowerShell ISC, this is the ISC how it looks. So if you can take a look on the left hand side, we have the interactive console again, which is embedded, which is included into the ISC. And then we have the script pane, where I can type my script n number of lines. It can be any number of lines. I can just keep typing within the PowerShell ISC, and there will be a lot of additional features that you will be getting using the script pen, which I will demonstrate in a couple of minutes. And then this particular window is called as show command window. Show command window. So what exactly it does is, if you are not familiar with PowerShell or you're just starting to learn PowerShell, this is a neat approach that you can take. You can just you don't know what exactly the command is, but you know you need to deal with services or you need to deal with processes. Just type the process. So you can see the commands are getting filtered right here, which you can use. So the debug process is to actually debug a particular process, which means troubleshooting a kind of a process. And then get process is going to get you all the processes on your machine. Start process is going to start a process on your computer. Stop process is going to stop a process on your computer, and wait process is going to do a wait action on the process job. So if you see this particular command, it's pretty much easy for you to use this show command window, and then try to figure out a command that you want actually to get your job done. But this is one of the approach, but we are going to talk about commandlets in deep in the next modules, so that you will be able to understand how to find and use a particular commandlet. But the show command window is always there to help you, and there are a couple of neat set of features that ISC provides you to make your scripting journey with PowerShell a very good memory. So let's see, if I type get p and then see, as soon as I get type a PowerShell command, I get something called as IntelliSense hyphen. So the IntelliSense is going to give you a list of commands that you can use with that particular path. You can just go through tab completion. If I say just get p and then say tab on my keyboard, it will show me all the list of possible commands that I can use with get dash p, starting with get dash p. So this is one of the neat things that you will miss if you are writing your script outside the PowerShell ISC, where you will not be getting any kind of tab completion. So my script can be any number of lines. You can see the ISC provides me with the clear notation of what line of code what I am writing I am in at this point. So I'm at the 23rd line of my code. So similarly, you can just keep on writing your script and then try executing that in the console on the left hand side to see whether the code is working to that point or not. And then There are a couple of other things that we need to talk about in terms of ISC. This particular window is again the show command window, which you can hide by pressing this icon, and you can get a floating window of the show command by just typing show command, so which you can move into the next monitor and then try scrolling and looking at the commands. And again, the ISC can be ISC shell can be flipped to the right, left, or top, bottom. Or if you just want to focus on the scripting pane, you can just maximize the complete thing to a scripting pane. So this is one of the things that you can do. And then here you can see there is a couple of buttons, which are the one this play button actually is going to execute the script, and this particular button is going to execute the selected line, which means, for example, if you have 24 lines of code and you want to select one line and then press this button, it is going to execute only the line 10 of the code. But if I select this, it is going to execute the complete code, which is from 1 to 23 lines. Again, if you want to clear the console, this is the button you need to press to clear the console pane. And then there are a lot of options like save and a complete menu, which you can use right here. So we will completely going to demonstrate the ISA features one by one in next upcoming videos to make you comfortable with this scripting editor. And also we are going to talk about the PowerShell interactive console a little bit, and talk about some of the interesting features it offers in terms of IntelliSense. So that's it for this video, friends. Please try to practice and see what version of PowerShell you are in. Try to find out what version of PowerShell you are running on at this point, and see if you can get things upgraded to the latest version. So if you like this video, please do subscribe, like, and share to my channel, and then please press the bell icon to get notified for the next upcoming videos in this series, and we together learn PowerShell. Thank you and have a wonderful day.